Hi everyone, so what are your best cost saving refurb tips?
But before we get into that, if you're new to this channel, make sure you stroke that like and subscribe button. Really helps out the algorithms, and you'll get notified with more content like this and other videos all around property investing mindset.
Got 6 tips on refurb. So Ahmed, I think it's Carney, say his name, has asked for cost saving tips on refurb. We just done a refurb and we put a new bathroom in there, a new kitchen, and these weren't entry level specs. This was a nice spec. We put hard laminate flooring all the way across the bottom of the property, new carpets upstairs, lino in the kitchen. We had to move some radiators around, we had to plaster quite a few rooms, new boiler, and all this has come in at around the 8k sort of mark. I can't remember the exact figure, but it's really keen to get a lot done in that sort of price bracket. That could have, with some builders, they'd have come in with estimates of like 15, 20k, you know, and especially at the spec we got it done. So such an element, like especially on the property, this particular property was a 60 grand purchase, 61 grand purchase, and it's worth roughly about 85k. So if you end up spending too much on a property like this and you get you don't get these cost savings in, that could be the difference between you having some equity in a deal and not having equity in a deal, basically. So as I'm talking about this, number one, what I would say is your number one thing for saving costs on doing a refurb is getting the right builder. So guys, before I actually get too far into this, any grammar police out there, I apologise, I'm a little bit dyslexic. This just helps, but there will probably be spelling mistakes on here because I can't spell very well, and that's and especially if I'm talking and trying to spell at the same time, don't always come out the best. But apologies to any grammar police out there, I'm a little dyslexic, so give me an easy time. Somebody put on one of my posts a few days ago, I put then instead of than, so I put an E instead of an A, and he said, and he put on there then just in the comments, and I was like, I'm not sure what you mean. It should be then than. But anyway, guys, that's sidetracking a bit. So getting the right builder is critical. So again, what elements of a builder do you have to think about? The difference of the builder is probably the most key element part. That's why I put it on as number one. But what do you have to think about when you're thinking about a builder is it's not always cheapest, should I say. He's going with spelling, I'm not sure if that's right, is not always the cheapest, if that makes sense. So the cheapest quotes and the lowest quotes are not always worked out the cheapest. If you have to be going back over work because they've done it incompetently, or if they didn't do what you agreed to do, then it can often cost you a hell of a lot more money. As well, if you've got builders that you've got, for example, that might take longer, then that can cost money. So make sure you have some sort of form of agreement with the builders. So this agreement could cover the spec of the work, like the list of the work. It can cover your expectations on time spec, how you pay them. So make sure you've got some sort of agreement in place with them to manage exactly what you've got agreed, because this will manage expectations. And depending on what sort of builder and what size build you've got, I see some people in the comments said about getting a JCT contract. They cost a lot of money. If you're doing a really big refurbishment and they're getting a QS to accurately quote the job and getting a JCT contract, yeah, if you're doing a redevelopment or developments, then yes, that's adequate. But if you're doing just a normal refurb, like my refurbs are typically between about 5k and 15k. It adds enough value to get them revalued, but it keeps them pretty simple, especially in the type of area I'm in. It don't warrant a JCT. Somebody asked me as well, because I remote invest in one of the groups, they went, how do you manage your refurbs? And I said, yeah, just put an agreement in place. And a guy jumped in and said, a JCT won't look at anything, or that's nothing law if it's under 200k. And I said, mate, I'm not spending 200k. And in my agreements, I say I'll pay you up to a certain amount, and the remaining gets paid when the snag gets done. And little things in there, like I put in there with the builders, I want daily updates on video, WhatsApp, and videos, WhatsApp messenger photos, and live walk-arounds of the job. And if they don't do that we're going to stop the job and not pay you. I put little agreements in there like that. And if I'm not paying them on a 15k job, if I've only paid them 50% and they're not kept to the agreement, it's down to them to chase me. And whether or not my agreements are not like law, they're not like law like JCT agreements. They're just the heads of terms basically to manage expectations. And it'd be down to them to chase me then. Not me chase them, and I'm not sure a court would, if we've got in the agreement, this is what it is, and I've got proof that they didn't meet this agreement, I'm not sure a court would favour them, even if it wasn't a proper written up one by a solicitor. But it's mainly just managing expectations with them. So always set price expectations as well with builders. So when you're looking for builders, set a price expectation. I'm not sure I'm going to spend this right, guys, as I said. But set price expectations with builders when you're speaking to them at the front end, because certain people will try their luck. So some builders, you might have a house that you want to get painted. For example, you might want to get it painted for around £1,000, or let's say £1,500. That's your expectation. You're happy to pay £1,500. That builder might be thinking, especially for me when I'm a remote investing, and they can hear you've got a southern accent and you're in the north. They think, oh, you've got loads of money down there, and they all just think you're going to overpay for stuff. But if you're phoning them up, you want to set that expectation at the start. So you say to them, I can usually get houses paid for around £1,500. Can you be in line with that? If not, I don't want to waste your time. You say this politely, so it's not aggressive, but I don't want to waste your time doing quotes if you're going to be way off from that, you know? Because ultimately, the builder might quote 2.5k, but might be happy to do it for £1,500. But they're just trying their luck. They're just thinking, oh, let's try it. How much can I go up? And it's always that sort of. How can I terminology it? It's always that thing. How far can I push it without breaking it, without losing the job? And that's what builders will be thinking in their head. I want a quote. I want to get as much out of this quote, but I don't want to lose a job. But it's similar again. They don't want to go too low where they know they maybe could have got more. It's similar when you're bidding on a property. It's that thought process in your head. But if you manage your expectations and plant them seeds from the start, so saying, yeah, we usually get a boiler changed for around £1,000, £1,500. We usually get the house carpeted for around £1,000, £1,500. And if you put these prices, expectations in at the start, it won't waste their time basically. And ultimately, if they was willing to do it, then they know, like, okay, I'm not going to push it beyond that. Because if they push it to £2,500 and you was only happy to pay £1,500, even you say to them, I'm only happy to pay £1,500, it's hard for them to admit they was going to charge you £1,000 over what they could have done it for. So that's it. It just cuts it out then. And in their head, they might have walked away and thought, oh, I've done it for £1,500, but it's too embarrassing for them to backpedal off the back of that. So you really want a price set expectation, and also the expectations you want to set that on like time. And as I said, get your agreement in place to say how much time I'm expecting to take, what updates I'm expecting to get from the property, and how I expect to pay you. So that's the first one. Number two is obviously suppliers. So you want to get the right suppliers and the right sort of ones. Let's put a bit of room in now. Let's put that down a little bit further. Bring a little bit, what's the name? Number two. So you want to get the right suppliers and get the right. It's not only you've got to imagine it's not only the right suppliers and getting the right materials. You want to make sure you get source them from the right places. So the difference of buying kitchens from different places can be astronomical, you know. So for instance, you want to be looking at things like LMPG. How come I'm not spelling LMPG? But my brain went blank then. You want to be looking at things like LMPG for cheap supply stuff. You want to also go around suppliers, because even with LMPG, I'll go around to sort of like Howdens, I'll go around to different ones and get comps from them. Say to them, look, here's the price I've got from here. You might go around to Benchmark. So often I don't find the LMP magnet kitchen prices very rarely get beat. I can usually find bathrooms at a similar price to LMPG, but the kitchen ones very rarely. I've not had them beat yet. I've had one, Haddon's once said they will match it, but that was after they'd already come in a few £100 more. Haddon said to me, look, send over your quote and we'll beat it. And I said, well, you just tell me what you'll do on this spec kitchen and how much I'll do it for. And they come in about £300 more on an £1,100 kitchen, which is quite a big percentage. £300 don't sound much in the grand scheme of it, but on £1,100, it's quite a jump up, you know. Like, like 20% jump up of price. So then I showed them my original price. I went, oh wow, that's well cheap. We can't beat that, but we'll match it. And I'm like, well, if you'd matched it in the first place, I might have been tempted, but obviously my loyalty is going to stay with Magnet because they beat you first off, and you still can't beat them. So unless you can beat them, I'm sticking now. But always go around and comp it, you know. But every now and again, make sure you sort of you take the time to sort of go around to compare these. You don't want to do this all the time because you've got to also look at your time effort, but go around and compare just from time to time, because things change. Just because I'm getting off a Magnet cheap now don't mean Howdens have changed their structure or they've got a new branch manager in there that's just really keen to grab on the business. So go around and compare it time to time to see if they all are always the keenest sort of prices. Don't always let builders like you supply the big ticket items, so always generally my builders, if boilers, kitchens, I always want to supply them because the builders quite often will put a markup on it anyway, but quite often builders can't get it as cheap as the LMPG discounts as well, you know. So yeah, always try and get the big ticket ones. You don't want to be running around getting screws and little things like that, and if they put a little markup on that, it's not so bad, but always do the big main supplies yourself. So number 3 in this, I've got a list of them here, is getting your spec right. So the last thing you want to be doing when it comes to spec is making sure you're not going over the ceiling point of that area. So everywhere I have a ceiling cap. And also what you want to make sure is you meet the right tenant, you meet the right spec for the right tenant profile. So ultimately, you don't want to be putting granite worktops in an area where the ceiling, you might buy a house for 60k and the ceiling price is 90k. So you don't want to be putting granite worktops in there and spending 10k on worktops and 10k on the kitchen when there's a ceiling price in the area. But also you don't want to be spending that if the tenant profile might be benefits, and just don't expect that, you know. So always get the right spec for the right tenant profile. Just another quick reminder, if you're enjoying this, please give this a like, smash the subscribe button. It really helps the algorithms with this, push it out there and give me an understanding knowing that you are liking this and I'll make more content like this. And also look at your spec as in, does it really need to be changed? Certain things like doors, you might get away with painting internal doors instead of changing. As much as they look better changed, what I find is with the spec, if you can try and do the big, like the kitchen and the bathroom, then the rest of the house, they're the bits that really take the attention of surveyors and valuers and things like that, and people that come in to rent your property. So the better the spec is, as long as you keep it to that level, but the better the spec, the easier you're going to rent these properties, and no matter what level you're in. Obviously you've got to match it to that profile, so if you was in Chelsea you would want granite worktops, otherwise they'd walk in and think, nah, this ain't up to a high enough spec. But if you was at the benefits end of it, you still want it looking really nice and fresh when you walk in there. It might not have to be granite, well, it definitely don't have to be granite worktops, but you want it looking nice. But kitchens and bathrooms always are worth considering doing. And when it comes to spec, you want to think, is it worth, like sometimes it's worth changing a kitchen even if it don't need doing it, just to get that spec up a little bit. Well, that's one of my further ones, so I'll hold that thought there a second, guys. But yeah, I find if you've done a kitchen and bathroom, for instance, a property might be wallpapered, but the wallpaper be in good condition, so stripping off wallpaper means you might have to replaster. So if you've done the kitchen and bathroom, painting the walls, don't notice so much over wallpaper because the house looks nice as you walk in. Always change, ideally again, same again, if you've got fresh carpets throughout, you've got to look where you can and can't get away with certain spec and items. For instance, I like putting chrome sockets in the kitchen, but I won't put them throughout the house. And it just stands out in the kitchen, you know, or sometimes on the ground floor, depending on how much budget's in and margins in there. But spec would also depend on how much wiggle room you've got in the deal. If you've got a massive margin in the deal, you might want to spec it up that little bit more because it can pay you back dividends at the back end. So number 4 is, I think I might run out of space here because I've got 6 to put on here. So number 4 is getting enough done for the revalue. Not sure if I spelt that right, guys. My mind's gone completely blank on the spelling. I'm not best at the best of times, so any grammar police, I apologise again. But get enough done for the revalue. So ultimately, you might have to spend a little bit more, and this is what I was talking about with the spec. You might have to do a kitchen, but if it gives you, like for instance, if you, we just bought that property and the kitchen could have got away with staying there and you would have still rented the property. But that said, this could be the difference between refinancing out a nice chunk of your capital and refinancing out nothing, because the surveyor comes out and says, no, what you done to add the value to it. So even though you're kind of spending at the front end, you will make a saving. You potentially make a saving, like, well, you potentially get loads of your money back. So you kind of getting it back. So it's a weird psychology. I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, but make sure you get enough to get the valuations done. And kitchens and bathrooms are usually where you get them done. So even if you've got a nice bathroom in there, you might have a nice bathroom, but you might spec it up a bit on the. I use cladding as opposed to tiles. One, they're slightly cheaper. They're cheaper to install. Let's put it over here, cladding. And you can get really, really nice quality ones, but also much easier to maintain. I see everybody put the brick tile effect, and you can get a cladding version of that. You can get a cladding version of that looks really good, close to the tiles, but you've got no grout, you've got no maintenance, they're easy to wipe down, and they're much quicker to install. And things like that, when you're saving on refurbs, you can go straight over old tiles as well. So you've not got to rip the tiles off the wall. You've not got to then stick the tiles on the wall, then come back and grout them. So it saves so much time on the labour when you stick cladding over the top, and you can get really, really nice spec claddings as well. Because the time you save on labour, you can get and the tiles, cladding is slightly cheaper than tiles, I find anyway. But again, you get really, really nice spec that looks great and can make it look really, really good. So what's the next one? Number 5 is think about second hand. So you can go on like places like eBay, Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace, and you can pick up loads of really nice, you can pick up nice spec, you can pick up a Villeroy Bosch second hand sink that's in really good condition for the price of a basic sink, in like a basic normal sink, you know. So then it makes it look, especially if you're doing flips as well, if you look at some odd little designery bits and only put the odd tiny tad of designer bits in and the rest of the things basic, it can really make a property stand up, especially if you can and especially if you can get these from eBay, Facebook, Gumtree, second hand bits. You can even get kitchens off of there, you know, second hand, but sometimes you've got to weigh up the exchange of the cost of searching for it and everything, and getting that balance right. But second hand bits is great. But also when it comes to suppliers, I said about LMPG and getting the comps, I forgot to also say eBay is a great place to, not just for second hand, it's a great place to find really, really cheap supplies like doors. I found some really good composite doors off there this week, you know, and they've beaten any other price I've found. But also just the ease and the quickness of being able to go on eBay and have a quick little scout through rather than phoning up 20 different suppliers. And most suppliers are on eBay, by the way. Some of the suppliers that I've used via some other avenues, I found on eBay when I've looked and I clicked on it, I'm like, oh, that's a supplier I know. So yeah, eBay is great. I found some really good, you can find some really good bathrooms on eBay, taps, but be careful with taps. So when you comes to spec again, make sure you get good quality stuff. Make sure the quality, I'm just going to put Q there for quality because I'm not going to try and think how to spell it out quickly. But get the good quality stuff, because sometimes you might buy a £10 tap, it looks good from China, but it breaks in 3 months' time. If you're holding the property, you don't want to be keeping on spending that for repair. So you might save at the front end and look good at the front end, but not for the long-term durability. So make sure when you're doing spec, you get stuff that's durable, because even though you might pay a little bit more on the front end, it's going to save you money at the back end. This is why we put laminate flooring downstairs as well on properties now. One, it really helps with the valuation. Two, it helps with letting it out, it looks good. But three, the durability of it is much harder, and really lasts longer. So you've got to think of not only what you're going to save at the front end, but what you could save over a period of time as well. So really keep that mindful of that. Number 6, and this is the last one, guys. Number 6 is self-managing. So instead of giving the key, instead of giving the keys to one builder to do it for you, you self-manage it yourself. So you manage the individual trades with this. First of all, though, one like warning signs, not warning signs, but one bit to be cautious about is got to make sure you can get in the right order and know how to manage it. So if you asked the plasters to come in before the electrician to come in, then you're gonna have to pay for plasters to come back, and you can end up spending more money if you get things in wrong order and don't get that correctly. Another thing you've got to account for this, which a lot of people don't, is the opportunity time cost of yours, of what your time is worth. So put this down here. Hope you can see it's down here, guys. But what is your time worth? You know, if you're spending them, but also when you're working out what your time is worth, like a lot of people, like you'll read the 4-hour work week. If I've got it here, there's Tim Ferriss, one of his books there. But you'll read a 4-hour work week and they say outsource everything, life leverage says about it. But you've got to think smartly about outsourcing everything. The general thing is you should work out roughly how many hours I do a week, and how much money do I earn over the year, and then you divide that down and find out what your hourly rates were. And the theory behind it is, if I can get it done cheaper than my hourly rate, get it outsourced. But that is only if you can still do work in that time. So if your time's worth £300 an hour, for example, for an extreme example, but you can get a project manager could do it for £20 an hour, yes, outsource it to the project manager. If in that time, if that project manager takes 3 hours and you could have earned £900 in that 3 hours, then you outsource it. But if your example is you earn £300 an hour, but you've only got 2 hours a day you can earn that, and you've got loads of hours left in the day, and you can't keep on emulating them hours throughout the rest of the day, then it's worth considering doing yourself. But always weigh up your time opportunity costs of when you self-manage things, and also make sure you get it correct, because if you don't get the order aligned, then sometimes this can really cost you money. You know, like if you get things done slightly wrong, you get over stuff, it end up costing you more than it would do giving the keys. And sometimes the stress, look at the stress levels. You know, add that one in there. You don't want to do it at a cost of your stress. If it's really stressing you out, sometimes it's worth just paying a little bit extra and giving the keys to a builder that they're going to get it all done, even get a cleaner in at the end, and they just give you the keys back ready for it to be rented out. But these are my 6 tips around there. And remember, I'll finish this with my one-line mission statement and my life why. If you don't evolve your ideas, you're never going to live on your own terms. So evolve your ideas, live on your own terms. Have a fantastic day, everybody. You too, have a great weekend.